My name is Jan. This is the story of how I had one of the hottest sex experiences of my life. I'm not just saying this, I've dated over 100 women. I understand that you may be skeptical, but it's true. It helps that I adhere to two classic internet rules for getting girls. 1. Be attractive, and 2. Don't be unattractive. I've been told that I look like a more accessible version of Ivan Drago from the old Rocky movies. I'm a big guy, about 6'5" inches, 196 centimeters, and at the risk of sounding immodest, I'm well built. I'm not as ripped as Ivan, that's impossible without serious steroids, but I'm a personal trainer at least part-time and spend a lot of time in the hall. Good looks help a lot in attracting women, if only to increase self-confidence, but looks alone are not enough. At least for my numbers. You need to be able to find a common language with women, show interest in their hobbies, predict what turns them on and what turns them off, understand what they want from sex, and so on. Experience and willingness to accept failure are also very important. I've had as many failures as successes, but I've learned to deal with rejection. But the biggest secret to sleeping with more women is to broaden your standards. I'm 32 now, but when I was younger, I only wanted to sleep with 9s and 10s. This was normal for a while, but everything changed one night when I slept with a 6. I won't go into detail now, but that night changed my life. At that time, it was the best sex of my life. I couldn't believe that these 6 outperformed the other, objectively more attractive women. I thought this might be a one-off, but after a few other 6s, I realized it wasn't. It took me a while to figure out why sex with 6s was better, but I have a few theories. First of all, 6s are more grateful when a guy like me pays attention to them. 9s and 10s take it for granted, and for these 6s, I may be the only 10 who approaches them. Secondly, 6s usually know that they are a 6 and develop themselves in other directions to make themselves more attractive. 9s and 10s tend to rely on their appearance, while 6s try to be more interesting. My final theory links these other two theories because 6s don't usually date 10s, and because they don't rely solely on their looks, they tend to make better lovers. They understand that sex with a 10 may be a one-time event in their lives, and they show it. Realizing this, I expanded my range from exclusively 9s and 10s to 5s and above. The number of women I slept with increased dramatically. I admit it's a little reckless to sleep with so many women, especially without using protection when possible, but I don't have children yet, at least as far as I know. I had a few infections, but nothing incurable. But enough about me. Let me introduce you to the woman who has become my favorite partner, Cassie. Cassie was my colleague at the outpatient physical therapy clinic where I work. Technically, she's kind of my boss because she's a physical therapist and I'm just a TA. But she usually worked at one of our affiliated clinics, so when she came to us, she didn't boss me around. When I first met Cassie, I thought she was an A and completely uninteresting. Cassie is a little older than me at 36. She is physically quite tall at around 180 centimeters with long straight red hair that goes down to the middle of her back. But she looked very skinny, especially in the loose fit, and I prefer women with a little more flesh. She also didn't wear makeup, which didn't add to her points. I know a lot of men say they prefer women without makeup, but believe me, most of them prefer light makeup and think there is none. That said, I've slept with other A's before, but they usually have redeeming qualities. I didn't see that in Cassie. She talked a lot, but it seemed like she only talked about her family and church. She was happily married to her high school sweetheart, Joseph, and they had 2 perfect angelic sons who are now in high school. They spent a lot of their free time volunteering and going on mission trips together. I died of boredom every time I was drawn into these conversations. If things had gone differently, it's quite possible I wouldn't have even given Cassie a second thought. But then Casual Friday came and everything changed. As I said, Cassie didn't usually work at my clinic. She filled a shift once every month or two on average when another physical therapist needed a day off. So I had known Cassie for a year without ever seeing her in anything other than a loose uniform. But one Friday she came on shift, and instead of her usual uniform, she was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. When I saw this new Cassie, I didn't even recognize her at first. I don't want to be dramatic, but it was like a completely different person. Yes, Cassie was still thinner than I usually like, but now I could see that she still had curves. Her butt wasn't big, but her figure made it look bigger in comparison. Plus, her tight jeans showed off his good shape. Cassie had breasts too. They were a size B at most, but again, they were noticeable on her figure. She also applied light makeup, and her slightly blotchy skin now looked smooth and flawless. Plus, she did something with her eyeliner that made her blue eyes really pop out in an attractive way. It's ironic that the first time I saw her in makeup was on a casual Friday, but I wasn't complaining. Seeing Cassie transformed so much gave me an epiphany. If Cassie hid her appearance in this way, perhaps there was something more to her personality too. I decided to find out. During lunch, I deliberately sat opposite her and, contrary to my usual strategy of avoiding communication with her at all costs, initiated a conversation. After a light exchange of pleasantries, I moved on to my hidden goal of looking for signs of a real personality under Cassie's boring exterior. Hey Cassie, I just realized that I've known you for about a year now, and I still don't know a lot about you. I mean, I know about your church and family, but I mean you personally. Do you have any hobbies? Cassie looked at me thoughtfully, putting down her fork from the salad she was eating. Oh God, I have more hobbies than time for them these days. She smiled nostalgically, turning fully towards me. It seemed like she was just waiting for someone to ask her this question. Let's see. I run a lot and love hiking. Disc golf is a lot of fun, but I don't play it much anymore. I bake. I've been making our own bread for many years. I enjoy reading. Oh, really? What are your favorite authors and genres? I interrupted. She looked around conspiratorially and leaned towards me. In a quiet voice, she said, "Don't laugh, but I really love Stephen King." I laughed. Stephen King, the one who wrote all those horror stories about killer clowns and killer dogs. You're kidding, right? Cassie shook her head at me, as if she was annoyed by my disbelief, but continued to smile. I told you, don't laugh. But yes, that same Stephen King. I stared at her, still trying to figure out if she was joking. Sorry, I just can't imagine little Miss Innocent's Cassie reading books like this. No offense, of course. See, you're not the first person to tell me this, Cassie said, pointing her fork at me. But what none of you realize is that Stephen King is not actually a horror writer. I mean, he is, but he's a character creator first and foremost. He simply uses horror to bring out different sides of the people he creates. Yeah, I said with obvious skepticism. Look, I know you're laughing at me now, Ian, but I know what I'm talking about. Do you know the movie, The Shawshank Redemption? This is also Stephen King. Stay with me, Stephen King. Green Mile? I guessed it right. Mr. King himself. Wait, Stephen King wrote The Shawshank Redemption. Cassie grinned triumphantly. He definitely wrote it. Bet you didn't expect this. And even his horror films spend more time developing characters than you might think. That killer clown you mentioned? You're talking about the novelette, and that book is over 1,000 pages. Yes, there are horrors, but it's more of a coming-of-age story about a group of friends. Okay, damn it, I said, raising my hands in surrender. Maybe I should really give him a chance. Costs. He is awesome. But what about you, Ian? What are your hobbies? We talked for the rest of lunch. I was surprised how much I enjoyed our conversation. This was a far cry from the usual mindless chatter I'd come to expect from Cassie. As I began to suspect, it turns out that Cassie has a real personality inside her. I admit, I began to show interest in her. But can I do something about it? The biggest problem was that Cassie was happily married. I've slept with married women before, but they were all unhappy with their husbands. You never know how things are going in someone's marriage behind closed doors, and it's technically possible that Cassie and Joseph were having problems. But I doubted it. The fact that Cassie and I worked together at least sometimes also complicated things. As a rule, I tried not to sleep with colleagues, at least in those jobs that I liked. A few years ago, I had a bad experience after a fling with a coworker ended badly. In the end, I had to quit, and I swore to myself that I would be much more careful in the future. And yet, for the rest of my shift, I couldn't stop thinking about Cassie. I imagined how she would react if she gave herself to me. I made a decision. I was going to try to seduce Cassie. My chances might not be very good, but I knew that if I didn't try, I would always wonder what could have been. Despite what seduction experts may say to the contrary, there is no 100% way to seduce a woman. But I've learned a few tricks over the years. My first step was to hint to Cassie that I found her attractive. It takes some tact, but if you can get a woman to think that you've noticed her without seeming intimidating, she'll often start thinking about you in the same way. In fact, for many of my conquests, this was enough for them to offer themselves to me. Honestly, my looks helped a lot with this, but I think even a less attractive man could use that as a good starting point. So, while Cassie and I were between patients, I casually remarked to her, "I know this is weird, but I wanted to say that I almost didn't recognize you this morning." Stepping out of my regular uniform, I thought, "Who is this red-haired woman, like she works here?" Cassie laughed. "Yes, this is my first time on a casual Friday, but the only clean uniform I have left isn't my favorite, so I decided let there be jeans." Logical. "Anyway, you look great in them. If you don't mind, I can ask where you bought them." "Why, are you looking to buy one of these for yourself?" Cassie raised an eyebrow. "Hey, don't judge. So what if I'm looking?" I replied before smiling. "But no, I just want to know so I can recommend it to my future girlfriend." "They are from Levis." "But seriously? Your future girlfriend?" Cassie clearly didn't believe it. I felt it was too early to be too persistent. Time to let my tact work. "It's not that crazy. There is one particular girl that I am courting. It is not hypothetical. And she loves new things. I thought I could surprise her." "Ah, a romantic then. I didn't expect that from you," Cassie mimicked me. "I just like to make my women happy," I shrugged, hoping that Cassie had caught my subtle hint. "Thanks for the help." "No problem," Cassie said. "Let's go to the next patient, another runner's knee." Wonderful. The rest of the day passed quietly, but I hoped that the seed I had planted in Cassie's head had begun to grow. I knew that Cassie would be at the clinic with me for the next week too, so there was no rush. Plus, I knew that if I was going to have a chance with Cassie, I would need to work on her first. Over the weekend, I came up with a plan. I thought he was pretty good, but time will tell. On Monday, I was disappointed to see Cassie back in her loose-fitting uniform and no makeup. However, now that I knew what was hiding under her usual appearance, there was nowhere to retreat. I flirted slightly but subtly to keep her mental seed growing, but was careful not to cross any boundaries. At lunch, I sat next to her again. After a few more small conversations, I moved on to my plan. "So, Cassie, you mentioned that you run and hike. Do you go to the gym too?" Cassie shook her head. "Not anymore. I used to go, but between work and family, I realized that it was easier to train at home. We signed up for an exercise streaming platform, so I just use that." "Is it true? And how do you like it?" I said, trying to act casual. "Well, okay, the convenience factor is hard to beat." "Understand. Have you ever used the services of a personal trainer? I mean, of course, as a physical therapist, you don't need help planning exercises, but for motivation and training." "No, I never saw the need for this, to be honest, especially if you have to pay for it." This might be harder than I hoped." I leaned towards Cassie. "I don't know if you know this, but I do personal training on the side. For about 10 years now, I'm teaching classes here at the clinic before opening with some other staff at a discounted rate. Do you want to try it for free, just to see if you like it or not?" "Well, I do not know. I don't want to get up early and leave Joseph alone to get the kids ready for school. Plus, I'm used to training in the evenings." "It's your business, no hard feelings anyway. But think about Ido. How much time do you have free during the day? Don't worry about deciding right now. I'll be here all week if you want to try." The class starts at 6 a.m. and lasts 45-60 minutes, including warm-up and cool down. We'll finish with plenty of time to shower and get ready for the day. I'll think about it, Cassie said, but I wasn't sure she meant it. However, I knew there was nothing more I could do. The rest will depend on her. The next morning, I woke up early to arrive at the clinic at the appointed time. Even as a physical therapist assistant, I worked there long enough that I was considered reliable enough to have my own keys and alarm codes. My nerves were on edge, and I couldn't wait to see if Cassie would show up. Unfortunately, 6 o'clock in the morning passed and Cassie was not there. Looks like I missed it. I trained alone anyway to vent my frustration. Afterwards, I used the shower at the clinic to freshen up. The workday itself was nothing special. Cassie and I worked together again and ate lunch together again. I didn't plan on telling her that she missed her morning workout, but disappointment and curiosity got the better of me. I noticed that you weren't at morning training. Have you decided to refuse my offer? No offense, just like I said. Just wondering. Cassie's eyes widened, and she put a hand to her lips. Oh, Ian, I am so sorry. I completely forgot about it. Last night, I was busy helping Dan and Michael with their homework, and it just slipped my mind. I really want to try. Here, I'll set an alarm so I don't forget next time. Everything is fine. Like I said, just curious. By the way, you inspired me. I picked up Stephen King's book to read, The Shining. The movie was pretty good, so I decided to give the book a chance. I said, trying to hide my excitement about Cassie's commitment. Cassie nodded at me with approval and respect. The Shining is great. I warn you, it is very different from the movie, but I think you'll like it. I can't wait to get started, I said enthusiastically, although it wasn't a book I was waiting for. Early Wednesday morning, I was back at the clinic, hoping my luck would change. I decided that if Cassie didn't show up again today, and she didn't have a good reason, it was probably a sign that my seduction attempt had failed. 2 misses in a row is usually final. But there was no need to worry. Just before 6, a car pulled into the parking lot and Cassie got out. She was wearing a tank top with a sports bra underneath and loose shorts. Her red hair was tied into a ponytail. Objectively speaking, it wasn't a sexy look at all, but it was the first time I'd seen Cassie's bare shoulders and upper chest. It made my imagination more vivid. When Cassie entered the building, I pretended to greet her. Good morning, sunshine. I hope you are as excited about this workout as I am, I exclaimed. Ooh, Cassie encouraged me before noticing the empty room around her. Where is everyone else? Probably decided to sleep in this morning, I lied. So it's just you and me. But don't worry, I'll get you so involved in the training that you won't even notice. I hope you don't have anything too complicated planned. I'm not used to morning workouts, remember? Cassie said as she set her bag down. Don't worry, I won't give you more than you can handle, I said with a devilish smile. But let's get started. Thought we'd work on the lower body today, if that's okay with you. Let's start with a warm-up. Get into a lunge position for me, I said, going into trainer mode. The training itself went faster than I expected. I remained professional and never touched Cassie, despite my strong desire to do so. She quickly adjusted to the training, working hard on each exercise. I was truly impressed by her fitness, even though she looked like the breeze could blow her away. She wasn't muscular, but she clearly used what she had wisely. I allowed myself to admire her body as it twisted and tensed in various exercises. Still not my preferred body type, but damn did she win me over. As we started to cool down, I couldn't resist asking, So, Cassie, how do you like it? Cassie took a few seconds to catch her breath. I think you have a different idea of what I can handle. It was intense. You did great. Honestly, you're in better shape than most of my clients. Looks like these home videos are really doing something. Thank you, Cassie smiled, still catching her breath. I don't feel in shape right now. Take my word for it. Well, do you want to repeat it tomorrow? Still a free trial, so we can focus more on flexibility this time. Cassie thought for a moment before nodding. Yeah, that sounds good. I will be there. Great, I said. That's all for today. You can go take a shower. I'll use the shower on the men's side, and then we can get ready for the day. Cassie nodded weakly, picking up her bag and heading towards the women's showers. She was still out of breath. Great job today, Cassie. You did it, I shouted after her before heading towards the men's shower. The work shift went by quickly. Cassie and I talked again over lunch. I was now enjoying our conversations, and I shared my impressions of The Shining. I'm already about a third of the way through the book. I think Cassie was surprised by my interest in the book, but I could see that she enjoyed talking about it with someone. I read even more that evening, killing time in anticipation of our next training session together. On Thursday morning, Cassie came again, true to her word. Has everyone decided to sleep in again today? Cassie said as she walked in and noticed it was just the two of us again. I decided it was time to tell the truth, at least partially. Okay, Cassie, I have a little confession. There is no morning training group here. There is only you. I'm trying to form a group, but it's difficult when no one is involved yet. Nobody wants to be first, you know. I'm sorry I lied. I hope it's not a problem. I just really wanted it to work. Cassie looked at me as if her suspicions were confirmed. It makes sense, actually. I asked other girls if they were joining the morning workouts, and they looked at me like I was crazy. Yeah, sorry about that. If you want, maybe after a couple more practices, I can use you as an example. Shall I extend your free trial for another week or so? Actually, I wouldn't abuse someone's time like that. But since you lied to me, I think we can be considered even. Cassie smiled playfully. Was Cassie flirting with me? It wasn't unusual for women to flirt without intending to do anything further. But it was definitely a good sign. Perhaps it's time to move on. Sounds fair, I replied, giving her my most charming smile. As promised, the workout was easy, focused on mobility and flexibility. Cassie was quite flexible already, but I still found a few exercises that challenged her. I touched her a couple of times during training to slightly adjust her postures, but was careful not to overdo it. Since Cassie was my first target of happily married women, I was afraid to go too fast. It was necessary to gradually bring her to this. Oh, I liked this workout a lot better than yesterday, Cassie said when we finished. I don't think I even need a shower. Well, enjoy it while it lasts. Tomorrow, back to the scales. Next in line is the upper body. Unless you chicken out, I mimicked Cassie softly. And deprive you of pleasure? I don't think so, Cassie answered without hesitation. I bet I can lift more than you. You may have the power, but I have the technique. Damn, she had spirit. I would give anything to see this side of her in bed, I thought. But I just smiled and replied, I guess we'll see about that, won't we? Another day of work passed. Cassie and I were talking about The Shining again over lunch, and before I knew it, Friday had arrived. This was the key point of my plan. This was the last day Cassie would be in my clinic, as our regular physical therapist was returning the following Monday. In order for my seduction to continue, I needed Cassie to continue coming to our morning practices. I decided to offer her a little extra incentive. Married or not, almost every woman appreciates a good show, and I was ready to provide it. As usual, I arrived early, and Cassie showed up almost exactly at 6. She still preferred to wear her plain tank top and loose shorts, but I had learned to appreciate her body in that too. Damn, even without makeup, I began to admire her face with all its flaws. Cassie wasn't classically beautiful, but she won my heart. It occurred to me that she had unknowingly seduced me just as I had seduced her. We started the training as usual, but this time I joined in. I hope you don't mind, Cassie, if I participate too. Don't worry, you will still be my main target, but my ego took a bit of a hit after your comment about lifting weights yesterday. I feel like I need to restore my dignity. Plus, I love an upper body workout day. Cassie shrugged indifferently. Whatever makes you feel better. But if just one comment from such a kushki like me, I was able to hurt your ego, which means that your ego was not so strong from the very beginning. I stared at her, genuinely surprised. Cassie, when did you become so cruel? I thought you were a good little Christian mom, but here you are, quietly humiliating me. I am a good Christian mother, but Jesus loves humility. I'm just helping you on this journey, Cassie said with an exaggerated look of innocence. What? Is this really the same Cassie I've known for a year? Cassie, who I thought would never say anything halfway rude. This Cassie had fire. Oh, I see how it is. Well, let's see how badass you are when we finish this training. Wrist stretch, let's go. I shouted the last phrase, causing Cassie to flinch. And with that, we started. I kept the pace intense, but lifted less weight than I usually do. Even though I was also participating in the training, I still needed to focus on Cassie. We progressed through the exercises until we reached the last one. We were both already out of breath. In a natural movement, I took off my shirt, throwing it to the side. Now I was half naked. My torso was completely visible to Cassie. I noticed her eyes scan over me, but she quickly looked away, as if she was ashamed of what she had looked at. Without delay, I continued my training. We struggled through the last set, dropping the dumbbells in relief when I said stop. I high-fived Cassie after we'd caught our breath a little. Great job, Cassie. I noticed how you really tried on these hammer flexions. To be honest, it was more tenacity than anything else. I don't usually lift that much. Anyway, you did it. But let's cool down now. I know you don't need to explain the importance of stretching. We went through the various cool-down exercises I had planned, and I noticed Cassie's sneaking glances at my body again. Still not enough on its own, but a good sign. When we finished the child's pose stretch, I stood up first and helped Cassie up. Her hand seemed so tender and soft I held it a little longer than I should have. Hoping she didn't notice, I changed the subject. So, I wanted to let you know that I am preparing an official announcement for the clinic about my training class. Hopefully, I'll be able to make it in a week or two. But could you please leave a positive review for inclusion? If you say good things about me, it will definitely increase interest. Yes, I can do that, Cassie said. I actually lift more when you push me compared to what I did at home. Thank you. And I know you're heading back to your clinic next week, but could you continue our training here too? At least until I find real clients. Cassie looked away, avoiding my eyes. It would be inconvenient for me, to be honest. Don't get me wrong, Ian, these workouts have been great, but it will be different when I have to drive 20 minutes longer to my clinic. I'm not sure I can get up earlier than I do now. Crap. I knew that the end of training would mean the end of my seduction. I decided to push a little harder. Hey, I understand, and it's completely your choice. But what if we shortened our workouts by 20 minutes? I can simplify them so you have time to shower and drive back to your clinic, all without having to get up early. I saw Cassie considering my proposal, but before she could make a decision, I made my final move. Besides, you don't want to be like patients who start something good and give it up halfway, right? Cassie laughed. Oh, that's clever. Calling on my inner clinician. Fine. I'll give you another week, and then I'll review it. But it's still a free trial workout, right? Because now I'm advertising you. Just 1 week. This is not enough for me to make my ad and find people. Do it for at least 2 weeks. I tried to buy more time. No. You get 1 week with revision. And if that means you have less time to spend advertising, then you better use your time effectively. Cassie winked at me as she picked up her bag and headed towards the women's shower. Well, not as much as I hoped, but I have 1 more week. With luck, this will be enough. I've already decided how I'm going to make my move. Work that day was easy. I had somehow forgotten about Casual Friday, so I was pleasantly surprised to see Cassie back in jeans and a t-shirt. With my newfound respect for her body, I found it difficult to look away from her. The way her skinny jeans accentuated her movements was too tempting to resist. I think Cassie even caught me looking once, but pretended not to notice. We had lunch together again, and I was honestly sad that it would be our last lunch for a while. I enjoyed our conversations, I'll miss them after she's gone. Cassie had the ability to connect with me in a way I had never experienced before. I think there was something about her blue eyes that seemed to penetrate me rather than just scratch the surface. I admit, if Cassie were single, I would consider dating her. As the workday ended on Friday, I tried to remember every detail about Cassie. This may have been the last time for months that I saw her in clothes that suited her, but I had training to look forward to. Over the weekend, I assessed my progress in seducing Cassie. She clearly found me physically attractive and found us at least somewhat compatible. Cassie knew I found her attractive and did nothing to dissuade me. We've even flirted a little over the last week, although I doubt Cassie would call it that. In itself, this, of course, meant nothing. I've reached this level with a lot of women who ended up being pushovers. But I decided it was enough to justify taking my seduction to the next level. Especially since I only had one guaranteed week left with Cassie, I had to act quickly. Given this and Cassie's request for shorter training times, I decided to change the style of our training. Instead of weightlifting and bodyweight exercises, I introduced kickboxing to Cassie. Kickboxing is physically intense, ideal for short workouts, but he also has the potential to work in pairs, which was key for the next part of my plan. Monday's practice served as a transition period. I taught Cassie the basics of kickboxing, punches, hooks, footwork, etc. On Tuesday, I introduced her to combination strikes and combinations. On Wednesday, I started pairing her, holding targets for her to hit and giving her someone to mirror. I really enjoyed this session because it gave me a sense of our physical compatibility. We really were a natural fit for each other. Thursday was the day I made my move. The start of the workout was simply a repeat of what we had done earlier in the week. Nothing special. But after the first half of the training, I went to my trap. Cassie, I'm impressed with how quickly you're learning everything. It took me a lot longer to get used to the smooth movements of kickboxing. It must be the experience of picking up kids a lot, Cassie shrugged, but I could tell she was pleased by the compliment. Maybe, but how about trying some jiu-jitsu techniques? If you're looking for a short, intense workout, there's nothing better. In addition, this is good knowledge for self-defense. I don't know if Cassie knew what jiu-jitsu was or not, but to be honest, I didn't care. I just needed her consent, and she agreed. Yes, we can try. Just nothing too complicated. I'm already tired. Cassie fanned herself dramatically. Don't worry. Today will be mostly training. So, in self-defense, you usually try to avoid hitting the ground. Much harder to escape and more likely to get injured. You can think of jiu-jitsu as what to do if you do find yourself in this worst-case scenario. Let me show you the main points. Can you lie on the mattress with your knees up? Okay, Cassie said, looking down as she lowered herself to the floor. Now you're in the worst-case scenario. Usually, if you're in this position, your attacker will either jump on you or try to kick you. I walked up to Cassie's head and pretended to kick her. We can discuss how to avoid kicks later, but in short, you want to put your feet between you and the attacker before getting back to your feet. Cassie turned on the ground so her feet were facing me and then kicked me weakly. I laughed. Yes, exactly. Only better. But like I said, today I want to focus on what to do if an attacker is following you. There are two main positions you can find yourself in, taking the horse and guard. First, I'll show you the horse. I warn you, I will lie on top of you, but I will try not to press too hard. Everything is fine. Okay, Cassie said again with some hesitation. Before giving her a chance to change her mind, I stood over her so that my legs were on either side of her body. I then lowered myself onto her in the traditional riding position. I basically straddled her body, resting on my knees. It was quite a compromising position, to say the least. I continued so Cassie wouldn't have time to think about it. So, in this position, your striker will most likely try to do one of two things. Either hit you on the head or choke you. I softly portrayed both options, aware of my power over Cassie at that moment. Fortunately, the methods of protection against both variants are similar. I'll show them later, but in the interest of time, let's show you how you eventually get out. Cassie nodded obediently. I knew that she was as aware of her vulnerable position as I was, but I felt that she would not stop me. After all, I'm her coach, right? First, you want to move into a bridge position, causing my body to fall forward over you. Yes, I know I'm much bigger than you, but with the right technique, you'll be surprised what you can do. Come on, try it, I encouraged her. Cassie braced herself and then pushed me up. Playing to the script, I allowed my body to fall forward so that my chest was above her face and my hands were resting on the ground behind her head. Great job. Now do you see where my elbow is? You want to use both hands to grab my right forearm. Pull it to the ground, folding my elbow and causing my body to fall to the side. Cassie did it without me even having to pretend to lose my balance. Great. Now this is the hardest part, so it's okay if you don't get it right the first time. But lift your right leg from underneath me, wrap it around my waist, and then use your left leg to push off the ground. Your goal is to roll onto your right side and flip yourself over me. Cassie went over my instructions in her mind, trying to prepare herself properly. She moved her leg back and forth, experimenting with the movement, before suddenly pushing herself upward. It wasn't entirely coordinated, and I could have resisted if I wanted, but I willingly allowed myself to fall onto my side. Not bad for the first time. As with anything, practice makes the master. From here, you can either ride me yourself or run away. It's usually better to choose the second option. But what do you think? Cassie looked embarrassed, and I'm sure it was partly from the effort. I think I definitely need more practice. If you were a real striker, I'd be in trouble. I know you gave in. Not as much as you think, I replied. But let's do it one more time before we call it a day. Let me show you the guard position. Lie back on the mattress with your knees raised. This was the key moment. The position of the guard was even more compromising than being on horseback. Under normal circumstances, no woman would allow a man to take the position I was about to enter. But here's where being a good mom worked against Cassie. You see, Cassie thought of herself as a good mom and a good wife, and I'm sure she was. But she took her goodness for granted, as many women do. They love their husbands and know that they will never cheat on them, unlike morally inferior adulterers. But it is this pride that puts them in a difficult position. You see, their supreme self-confidence lulls them into a false sense of security. They believe that even if some small boundaries are crossed, especially for a reasonable reason, it will be okay because they will stop before anything that really goes too far. But for a guy like me who is determined to seduce them and is smooth enough to cross those lines gradually without raising alarms when the time comes to say no, they will realize that they either can't or won't. And then I will get them. Now I was going to check on Cassie. Cassie was back on the mattress with her knees up. This time, instead of straddling her, I knelt in front of her legs, spreading them and pulling myself between them. I then leaned over her, placing my hands on either side of her body for support. We were essentially in the missionary position, only with clothes. But I still had to maintain the illusion of training a little longer. Okay, now wrap the legs around my waist. Your goal is to control me with your legs and prevent me from going into a mounting position. Okay, like this, Cassie said, following my instructions and wrapping her legs tightly around me. I knew she must feel the sexual tension just as much as I did, but she hit it well. It took all my self-control not to attack her right then and there. Physically, I was more than capable, but if Cassie gave in to me, I wanted it to be her free will. Exactly. Now your main goal is to prevent me from rising above your knees or getting close to your head with my hands. There are techniques that allow you to get out of this position too, but let's not dwell on that for now. Instead, I'll show you how you can protect your head. I'll fake kicks and you'll use your legs to keep me away from your head. Even though I'm bigger than you, you should be able to control me. Understood? I think yes. Let's try, Cassie said, her face showing concentration. I leaned back a little and began to deliver slow blows to the side of Cassie's head. She obediently pushed me away with her feet, moving her head away from my hands. Great. You're a natural, I said, barely restraining myself from revealing my growing desire. But a real striker won't be so accommodating. Just to give you some extra motivation to keep learning these techniques, I'll show you what you might encounter in the real world. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you, but try this exercise again, only I will resist. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Cassie said nervously, but I wasn't sure if she was talking about exercise or not. Don't worry, this will be good practice, I said, slowly starting to throw punches towards Cassie. As before, Cassie tried to use her legs to push me back, but this time I resisted, trying to stay in place. You are too strong. I can't, Cassie said, tensing up against me. Keep going, you're doing great, I encouraged her, allowing Cassie to feel my strength. Cassie continued to fight hard, but her muscles quickly weakened and I made my move. Using my height advantage, I leaned over Cassie and grabbed her wrists. Forcefully, but carefully, I pressed her hands to the mat. We were still mostly in missionary position, but now my weight was completely over Cassie, pinning her hands to the floor on either side of her head. She was completely in control at this moment. I looked at Cassie for a few seconds, both of us a little out of breath, letting the situation sink into our minds. Cassie tried to resist a little more, but quickly realized that she wasn't getting anywhere. She looked up at me with her big blue eyes. "Young," she whispered, "I'm married." Her voice was almost desperate, as if she realized how much her own body was hers. Taut. I didn't answer, but leaned over and kissed her. After that kiss, I pulled back a little to see Cassie's expression. It should have told me everything. She looked confused, but I saw desire in her eyes. Cassie searched my eyes for understanding of how she ended up in this situation. "Young," she whispered again, "I'm married." This time her voice was full of determination, but I felt that she was trying to convince herself. I kissed her again. Cassie kissed back. We made love. Cassie was the first to break the silence. I'll go, I'll clean up," she said. "Help is needed," I shouted to Cassie as she headed towards the women's showers. "No, no, everything is okay. Go mind your own business." Her voice faded as she disappeared behind the corridor door. I didn't think I needed a shower, but I definitely needed to go to the toilet. But I didn't want to risk Cassie trying to sneak out without talking to me. Despite how much I enjoyed having sex with her, I didn't want to get into another work trouble over it. I needed to understand where she was mentally right now. So I quickly went to the men's room, relieved myself, and returned to the main hall to wait for Cassie to return. After a few minutes, she finally emerged, dressed in her work uniform, her wet hair hanging loosely behind her back. I noticed that Cassie was avoiding eye contact with me. Assuming that her behavior was partly due to her feelings of guilt, I decided to be a little playful. "Great job today, Cassie. I think this was your best workout yet. I think you're ready for more advanced techniques. See you tomorrow morning." Cassie walked past me without answering. "See you tomorrow morning?" I repeated, louder this time. Finally, Cassie looked at me. The shame was clearly visible on her face. "Yeah, see you tomorrow," she said quietly, then walked out the door. Well, that wasn't too convincing, I thought. But this can be dealt with later. Now I need to get ready for work and revisit the mental images I've stored. On Friday morning, I dutifully arrived at the clinic by 6 a.m. I knew the chances of Cassie returning were slim, but I couldn't give up. And yet, despite my hopes, I was shocked when Cassie's car pulled into the parking lot. When she entered the building, I immediately noticed that she was not wearing workout clothes. Instead, Cassie was in her skinny jeans and t-shirt, just like that first casual Friday. Was this her way of showing that she wanted to skip the workout and get straight to the point? "As much as these clothes look good on you, Cassie, I'm not sure you'd want to train in them," I joked. "Ian, I didn't come for training. I won't train with you anymore," Cassie said with a sense of finality. "Oh, that's sad," I said, trying not to let the disappointment show in my voice, especially after our breakthrough yesterday. "We don't need to play games, Ian. We're both adults," Cassie said as she walked past me and started playing with dumbbells against the wall. I saw that she was gathering her thoughts in order to speak next. Here's the thing, Ian, she continued, turning to me. We had sex, and as much as I wanted it not to happen, it did. You are a very attractive man, and when you kissed me on the floor, I just lost control. I don't justify my actions, but at that moment I was not in my right mind. I started to speak, but Cassie stopped me. Let me finish what I came to say, and then you can speak. I came here this morning for the last time to let you know that what happened yesterday was a mistake. I love Joseph very much, and it hurts me to know that I betrayed him. He doesn't know anything, and I don't know if I'll ever find the strength to tell him, but I know. Cassie stopped for a second and took a deep breath. Now, I can't change jobs easily, and I know that you're unlikely to leave either, which means we'll have to see each other at work sometimes. But I want you to know that for everyone else, there was nothing between us. We're just colleagues. That's all we were and all we will be. Understood? This means that yesterday was a one-time incident. No hints or attempts to do anything at work. Understood? I nodded, but I wasn't sure if Cassie was finished. I felt like she was rehearsing this. Well, you can talk now, Cassie said with a deep sigh. My mind was trying to process what Cassie said. I suspected something like this might happen. At that moment, I planned to accept the rebuke and move on. After all, I already got what I wanted, right? A clean break would be a win. But the situation seemed wrong to me. There was something else here. I walked over to Cassie, closing the distance between us. She looked at me with determination on her face, but I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Cassie, I said softly, I'm really sorry that this is making you feel so bad, but you didn't betray anyone. I'm not going to destroy your family or take your husband's place. We're just two colleagues who help each other meet a need, that's all. I slowly raised my hand and placed it on her shoulder. And I don't think you're ready to end this. Cassie pushed my hand away and stepped back, but I saw a blush spread across her cheeks. Ian, I'm serious. I admit we had an affair yesterday, but it's over. Let's just continue like adults. I felt braver. I could see that Cassie was off balance. If that's the case, then why did you come this morning? You could have easily said it all in a message. I took another step towards her. I didn't want to leave a mark. Cassie said protectively, retreating again, maintaining distance. And why did you come alone? Could you bring a friend? Make up an excuse to bring her and leave her in the car while you talk to me. I took another step forward. Are you serious? I don't want to bring anyone else into this. Cassie backed off. It was almost like a dance. And why are you wearing those skinny jeans that show off your figure so well? You know how much I love seeing you in them. I told you that the first day you came to the clinic, remember? One more step forward. They're just my everyday clothes, Ian. I've been wearing them to work every Friday for the last month. Cassie took another step back, but now she was pinned against the wall. There was nowhere else to go. I smiled as I felt myself holding her. Honestly, and all of this may be true, but then why are you still here? Because Cassie started to say, but I interrupted her. Because deep down you know you're not ready for this to end. Whatever false stories you tell yourself, and no matter what guilt, no matter what you put yourself through, deep down you know that you still want me. This is stupid, Cassie interrupted. I know what If you really don't want this anymore, just say it. Say, Ian, no. It's over. Let me go now. Just say these words, and I'll leave you alone, I promise. I saw several emotions on Cassie's face. Her inner conflict was now fully visible. It's not that easy, Yong, she finally managed to squeeze out. We still have to maintain a working relationship. It's that simple. And this is what will happen. If you don't tell me no right now, I will kiss you. I closed the remaining distance between us so that my face was directly above hers. Her eyes seemed pleading, asking me to end her torment. Ian, please, Cassie said breathlessly. It wasn't a no, I chuckled, kissing her. See, it wasn't that bad, was it? I smiled, looking into her eyes. How do you do this to me? Cassie asked softly. I'm not doing anything to you. All you feel now is just you being freed from the role that you imposed on yourself. This is wrong. I shouldn't let this happen. I love my family. I love my husband. Cassie said desperately, as if trying to convince herself. I know, but you still want it, I said, kissing her again. I pulled away but kept my face close to hers, looking deep into her eyes. Cassie, it's okay to feel wanted. Just let yourself go. I won't tell anyone. This will stay between us. Cassie bit her lower lip uncertainty. You promise? I promise, I whispered, kissing Cassie again. I realized that at that moment she had given up. We made love again. So you wanted to talk, I said, getting to the point. I wanted to, Cassie agreed, examining my naked body. So obviously you were right about me. I'm not ready to end this. I don't know what this means for me yet, but obviously I'm not who I thought I was. That's not necessarily a bad thing, I noted. Maybe, Cassie countered softly, but I don't know. What I do know is that whatever our connection is, it doesn't change the way I feel about my family. I still love my husband and my children. I know. I never expected anything different, I replied. Okay, don't get me wrong, sex with you is by far the most incredible sex I've ever had, but it's still just sex. I didn't want you to think it meant anything more. I don't think so, don't worry, I said. Cassie smiled slightly, but she had something else on her mind. I'm still wondering, Yang, why me? You clearly planned this from the very beginning when you invited me to train. You put a lot of effort into seducing me. But why? Honestly, you're a handsome man. You could win anyone, the woman you want, I'm sure. So why me? Ah, here it is. It's not uncommon for women I've been with to ask the same question. After sex, many of them felt that there must be some hidden reason why I wanted to be with them, as if there could be no other explanation. Maybe they thought I felt sorry for them. Don't know. But this was completely wrong, and I had already learned how to explain this to them. The truth is, Cassie, for the first year I knew you, I didn't pay any attention to you. Nothing against you personally, I just didn't see anything interesting about you. But then you showed up in those skinny jeans to a casual Friday night, and everything has changed. I went on to explain how after I was attracted to her physically, I became interested in her personally, and the rest was history. When I finished explaining, Cassie nodded as if she finally understood. I added one more thing. And honestly, sex with you is the best sex I've ever had. I've never felt such a strong connection with anyone. I don't know why that is, but it's true. Cassie blushed. That's good to hear, but I'm sure you tell all your women that. No, I said honestly. Only you. There's something about you that I find irresistible. I don't know why, but it's true. Maybe because I'm a married woman and that makes me unavailable, Cassie suggested. Maybe, but I think it's more than that. In the end, it doesn't matter. All I know is that I want you more than I've ever wanted any other woman. Cassie didn't answer, but I could see that she was thinking deeply about my words. We sat in silence for a few moments while I finished washing myself. Are you finished? I asked, interrupting Cassie's thoughts. Yes, I'm done, she finally returned to her room. I turned off the shower, grabbed a towel, and handed it to Cassie before grabbing another for myself. After we dried ourselves off, we went out and started getting dressed again. It's a good thing I usually go without makeup, otherwise I would have regretted not bringing it with me this morning, Cassie jokes. Even then, my hair will be a mess. I like your hair down and messy. It makes you even sexier, I said, admiring its length. You're going to have to stop complimenting, Cassie said playfully but sternly. I like them, don't get me wrong, but to others we're just colleagues. You can't get used to flirting with me. Fair enough, I said, but just to be clear, we'll still be dating, right? Cassie laughed softly. Well, considering that I fully intended to finish this morning and ended up making love to you, I don't think stopping is an option. Okay, same time on Monday then, I said with a smile. If we're going to do this, I don't think we should schedule it every day. I don't want it to become a chore. Plus, there's no point in continuing to fake the workouts. But how will I see you otherwise? I noted. Phones exist, Ian, Cassie jabbed at me. When one of us is ready, we'll just text the other to meet here the next morning. I'll sign up for the gym to keep up the appearance of my morning workouts, but I'll meet you here whenever we want. I thought you didn't want to leave marks, I repeated her words. I don't want to. Don't write to me unless you're going to arrange something. And if you want to arrange a meeting, write me something about work. I'll understand what you mean. If I respond with something that says yes, that means I can meet. If I can't meet, I'll respond with something that says no. So even if someone sees our messages, they won't understand what's really going on. Can I text you about Stephen King too? So I don't keep sending the same, "Are you working today?" again and again. Yeah, sure, whatever, Cassie shook her head. Just seems appropriate considering this was our first real conversation, I shrugged. If you say so. But let's hurry. I know you don't have to go anywhere, but I have to go, Cassie said, tapping her foot impatiently. I enjoyed spending this morning with you too, I said dryly. Cassie rolled her eyes, but smiled. We walked out of the shower together, and I watched her walk out the front door, again admiring the way her jeans hugged her butt. I still couldn't believe that I had once thought Cassie was unremarkable. She was a goddess. The next 2 days flew by for me in a blur. I couldn't get Cassie out of my head. I kept replaying our sex in my mind, especially the look in her blue eyes. I wondered if Cassie was thinking the same thing. And sure enough, Sunday night, I got a text from Cassie that just said, "Hey, do you know if Shauna is working next week? I have a gift for her." I replied, "Yes, she will be here from 9 to 5:30 if you want to see her." The code was clear Cassie wanted to meet, and I said yes specifically. Several months passed, and this pattern continued. One of us was writing a message. The other answered. We met the next morning. We didn't have sex every day, but for the first few weeks, it happened several times a week, and then about once a week. Sometimes one of us was busy and couldn't make it, but most of the time we were more than willing to meet. As far as I know, no one else, including Cassie's husband, ever found out about our adventures. We had one incident where another colleague of mine unexpectedly arrived early, but luckily I saw him coming and was able to get Cassie out the back door before she was spotted. Our sex sessions were the highlights of my life at that time. I've never had such a strong connection with a woman before. Most of my affairs lasted no more than a week. Usually, there are always some misunderstood signals and awkwardness, even for a dozen like me. Finding someone like Cassie, who I truly felt such a strong connection with, was literally 1 in 100. Unfortunately, like all good things, it couldn't last forever. I still remember seeing the message from Cassie that marked the end. It was a Saturday night, and I was both puzzled and excited to see the notification. Cassie never texted me on Saturdays. If she wanted a meeting on Monday, her message always arrived on Sunday. What could this message be about? I opened it with trepidation. "Hey, Ian, I'm having a bachelorette party not far from your apartment. I have a Stephen King book for you, and I thought I'd stop by to drop it off on the way. Are you home? If not, I can leave it at the door." Was that a code? If so, then this was code that we didn't talk about before, and Cassie had always made it clear that we would never meet outside of our usual morning time, and certainly never in each other's houses. It was too much of a risk. I felt trapped. "Yes, I'm home. You know I love Stephen King, so I won't give up on that," I replied. I thought it was harmless enough in case there was someone other than Cassie on the other end. I received a response within seconds. "Great, I'll be there in 30 minutes. I put the phone down, puzzled. Was Cassie really going to come? For what? My mind raced through possible options. Maybe it was some kind of trap. Joseph finally figured it out and sent Cassie to me to see what I would do. On the other hand, maybe Cassie and Joseph had a fight and Cassie needed somewhere to go. Ultimately, there was no way to know for sure. I'll just have to wait and see what happens. My adrenaline was already pumping at this point, so I spent the next few minutes doing some light cleaning around the apartment to distract myself. When I heard the knock on the door, my fight or flight response was in full swing. And so, Cassie stood outside. She was definitely dressed for a bachelorette party, wearing a sexy yet somehow conservative dress. Her makeup was expertly done, and her long red hair was straightened to perfection. She had a book in her hands. Shooter by Stephen King. "Hi, Ian," Cassie said with a smile. "Hi, Cassie. Good to see you," I said, feigning casual politeness. I looked at her carefully, trying to find a clue about the purpose of her visit. "Can I come in?" Cassie said, pointing to the open door behind me. "Yes, of course," I said, stepping aside and letting Cassie into my apartment. Closing the door behind her, I did not see any hidden observers. Cassie looked around, assessing my living space. "It's not a bad place. It's not a house, but it's my house," I joked. I planned to tread carefully until I was sure it wasn't a trap, but my impatient curiosity kept me going. "Why are you here, Cassie?" "Like I said, I have a Stephen King book for you. The Dark Tower series is amazing, and I thought I'd give you a start." "This is all?" I asked skeptically. Cassie's mask of casual friendliness fell away, revealing the grim seriousness underneath. "No. Can we sit down?" "Oh no." Yeah, sure," I said, pointing to the couch, my heart now beating fast. Cassie sat on one side, and I joined her on the other. Cassie took a deep breath. "So, I did have a bachelorette party today, but I excused myself and left early to come see you. I wanted to tell you in person. Joseph and I are moving in next week." Cassie's words sunk slowly into my brain, but once they were there, they left a searing impression. "What?" I was finally able to say. "Joseph got a promotion and is being transferred back east. This is a huge opportunity. We couldn't pass up. We already bought a new house and closed on ours. I already have a new job. Tonight will be the last time we get to see each other." I felt shocked. Anger and confusion filled me, but they were too strong to do anything other than paralyze me. Cassie probably sensed my confusion. "Sorry, Ian. We have a connection, but my family comes first. I've always made that clear." I finally found my voice again. "How long have you known this?" I saw a hint of powerful emotion on Cassie's face before she suppressed it. "I've known it was a possibility for a while now, but the decision was only made this month. I didn't want to tell you sooner because I didn't want to ruin what little time we had left." I was furious. How could Cassie tell me this so suddenly and expect me to just accept it? "What if I'm not ready to let you go?" I said, anger flashing in my voice. "Young, please, this has already been decided. Don't make this any more difficult. Make it complicated. Cassie, this is already complicated. You don't have to leave." "You know what I need," Cassie said quietly, placing a comforting hand on mine. It worked, but now my anger has turned to bitterness. "What if I tell Joseph about us? Will that keep you here?" I said gloomily. Cassie sighed. "If you want to tell Joseph, I won't be able to stop you. But know that it will destroy my family, and I will never forgive you for it." Hardening, my heart softened. I could never hurt Cassie like that, I knew. Even if it meant I would never see her again, I couldn't do it. I sighed. "You're right, I won't say anything. But what if I go with you? There's nothing keeping me here. I can change jobs." I knew how desperate I sounded as soon as the words left my mouth. "Ian, I'm sorry. I know I'm not thinking clearly. I just need time to process it." "I know. It's not easy for me either. But I didn't come just to deliver bad news," Cassie said softly. She got up from the sofa and came over to me. "If today is our last time together, I would like it to be special. I have a surprise for you." I looked at her, distracted from my thoughts by her tone. Cassie looked into my eyes, then reached behind her and undid the clasp on her dress. Slowly, she began to pull the zipper down until the dress was loose enough to fall off her body and onto the floor. Instead of regular underwear, Cassie was wearing luxurious dark blue lingerie that contrasted beautifully with her pale skin. In all our meetings, I had never seen anything so deliberately sexual on Cassie. "Do you like it?" Cassie asked, turning around to show off her body. "Very," I said, unable to take my eyes off her. "Okay, I bought this especially for you. Why don't you take me to your bedroom and show me how much you like it?" If this was our last time together, I was going to remember it completely and down to the last detail. "I hope you're ready for this," I said. We made love. We lay there for a few moments, recovering, before Cassie spoke. "I guess that means you liked my surprise, huh, Ian?" "Are you sure you don't want to try again tomorrow?" I said, looking at her. "I think we should keep this as our last time," Cassie finally said, standing up on the floor. "I'll go to the bathroom." I lay on the bed while Cassie cleaned herself up. But after a few seconds, I also got up and headed to the place where Cassie's discarded laundry lay. I played with the fabric for a moment. Her softness reminded me of Cassie herself. Cassie came out of the bathroom, noticing what I had in my hands. "You can keep this if you want. Consider it a souvenir. The bathroom is yours if you need it." She walked past me and left the room. I hesitated whether to follow her, just to hug her, but my bladder demanded attention. I relieved myself and then followed Cassie. By the time I reached the entrance to the apartment, Cassie had already put her dress back on. It looked like she was about to quietly slip out the door. "Wait, are you leaving already?" I said, approaching her. "I need to go home, Ian." "I promised Joseph I wouldn't be long," she replied. "Don't forget he thinks I'm at a bachelorette party." "Sure, can you stay a little longer, at least 10 minutes?" I said, trying to sound casual. "Ian," Cassie said softly, looking away. I took her into my arms and hugged her tightly. "Good night, Ian. Don't forget to read The Arrow," Cassie said, pointing to the Stephen King book she had left on the table. She walked to the door, and a moment later she was gone. "Goodbye, Cassie," I said, after that as the door closed behind her. I stood there dumbfounded for a few seconds, then slowly walked over to the table and picked up the book Cassie had left. I lifted it to look at the back cover when a folded piece of paper fell out from between the pages. Intrigued, I picked it up and unfolded it. I quickly realized that this letter was from Cassie. In small handwriting, as if she was trying to use every inch of the page, she wrote me a long letter. I started reading. "Ian, it took me a long time to find the words for this letter. Our experience together is something I've never experienced before, and I still don't fully understand how I feel about it. On the one hand, it has given me incredible highs that make me smile just thinking about them. But on the other hand, nothing shook me to the core and destroyed my self-image. I never thought that I would cheat, especially not in such a way as to do it repeatedly and with pleasure. But that's who I am. At first I convinced myself that this was normal because I deserved the pleasure you gave me. Yes, in an ideal world, it should have come from my husband. But if Joseph didn't give it to me, was it so bad that I got it from someone else? After all, I did not cheat on him with my heart, mind, and soul only physically. I could have my fun and then go home and be the good wife and mother I always was. Over time, I realized that I was simply deceiving myself. The fact is that I broke a sacred promise to the most important person in my life. I could justify it any way I wanted, but it was the truth. I debated whether to end this with you, but I didn't. I'm still not sure why. Maybe because I was afraid that when the time came, I wouldn't be able to go through with it. We both know how it worked the first time I tried. Or maybe because I still enjoyed being with you, even with the shame that followed. Who knows? In the end, I didn't stop, and I regret it a little. But our sex was so amazing that I think that even if I could go back and make different choices, I would do the same. But now that I'm moving, I'm taking it as a sign from God that it's truly time to end our relationship. Please don't contact me after I leave. For our common good, I think we need a clean break. I will always think of you fondly. I'm sure I'll fantasize about you often. And if I'm completely honest with myself, I'm going to miss you a lot. But this is goodbye. Take care, Ian. Cassie. P.S. There is a line in Strelka that recently stuck in my head. Go then. There are other worlds besides these. I think it resonates with you as much as it does with me. I stood there for a few moments, processing what Cassie had written. Then I started the letter from the beginning and read it a second time. Then the third. Like I said, I look like a beast. I look like I could get in the ring with Rocky himself and come out victorious. But after reading Cassie's letter, I was like a teenage girl. I burst into tears. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.